In 2008, NASA had an intriguing question. How do spiders construct their webs in zero gravity? Therefore, they sent 2 spiders to the International Space Station. The first spider was the main participant, while the second served as a backup in case the first one didn't survive. However, things didn't go according to plan. The backup spider managed to escape from its chamber and visited its companion, resulting in a bit of a mess. They built tangled webs that interfered with each other. As if that wasn't enough, the flies that were supposed to be food for the spiders started reproducing faster than anticipated. Their larvae escaped from their container and covered the front window of the chamber. Over time, the spiders were completely hidden behind the larvae. Although this initial experiment didn't go well, one of the researchers involved in planning the spider experiment was still curious. In 2011, she got another opportunity to repeat the same experiment. This time, she sought assistance from other researchers. They decided to send a different species of spider into space and prepared 4 spiders, 2 for the ISS and 2 for Earth, allowing for result comparison. The goal was to expose the spiders to varying gravity conditions and observe their behavior. However, another twist appeared in the story. Initially, they believed they had 4 female spiders, but it turned out that 2 of them were actually males. Determining the sex of young spiders can be tricky, but fortunately, one male had already been sent to space, while the other remained on Earth, enabling valuable data collection. The second experiment proved successful. The spiders were active. They built and dismantled webs, and even without the assistance of gravity, they spun new ones. 3 cameras captured thousands of pictures, showcasing their hard work on the webs. Interestingly, it seemed that spiders created significantly more symmetrical webs in space than on Earth. The center of the webs was closer to the middle, and surprisingly, the spiders didn't always position their heads downward as they typically do on Earth. However, one significant factor made all the difference: light. When the spiders on the ISS had a source of light, they weaved asymmetrical webs, similar to those found on our home planet. Light played a crucial role in orienting the spiders in space. The chamber's lamps were attached at the top. If the lights had been positioned differently, for example on the side, it would have been challenging to observe the effect of light on the symmetry of webs in zero gravity. When the lights were turned off, the spiders rested in random orientations within their webs. Yet with the lights on, they would orient themselves away from the light source, which meant downward. Hence, in the absence of gravity, light assisted them in orientation. This discovery was unexpected, because spiders can typically build their webs in the dark and capture prey effectively, even without light. Spider's web itself is such a cool thing wherever they are. It's like these creatures have small silk production factories inside them. Within their body, a thread is stored in the form of a highly concentrated liquid. And a regular garden spider can produce up to 7 different types of silk, each having a unique combination of proteins. Each type of silk has a different purpose. For example, one type of thread makes the web elastic, which means the web absorbs the impact when insects collide with it. Another type of silk makes the thread flexible and strong, so it's more difficult to break. Some proteins found in the silk protect it from harmful bacteria and fungi, allowing the web to last longer. They also keep the silk moist so it doesn't dry out. Wow, imagine having a home where you don't have to buy anything extra to maintain it. Spider silk is lighter than cotton and incredibly thin, up to 1,000 times thinner than human hair. But it's also insanely strong. I mean, it must be, since that's what they rely on while living their everyday life. Whether they're preying on some wandering insect or trying to resist heavy rain and wind. But you wouldn't expect it to be stronger than steel, right? Of course, in reality, you don't come across steel that thin. But if you could find a piece with the same weight as spider silk, you'd see that it has similar strength when pulled or stretched. In fact, spider silk is 5 times stronger than steel of the same thickness. Spider silk is also super stretchy, able to stretch up to 4 times its original length without breaking. Plus, it remains strong even in freezing temperatures below -40 degrees F. The most common type of spider is the orb weaver. They're masters at building those webs you keep seeing in open areas. That's where they have a better chance to catch a tasty lunch. But since they choose such spots, their webs are more prone to damage. That's why these spiders have a fascinating habit. They often rebuild their entire webs every day, even if the current web seems perfectly fine. I wish I was this dedicated to maintaining my bedroom. These spiders actually do this because they want to be prepared for the evening when they patiently wait for their potential prey to get caught in their carefully set trap. At first, this might seem like a waste of time. After all, they need to invest a significant amount of protein to produce the silk that forms their webs. But even if an orb weaver spider doesn't catch its meal overnight, it usually has enough silk proteins to dismantle its old web and build a new one for the following night. As the spider removes the old web, it consumes the silk at the same time, and by doing that, recycles the proteins it contains. If you've ever observed a spider on its web, you must have noticed how attentively it responds to even the slightest vibrations. It turns out that spider silk can be finely adjusted to different sound frequencies, unlike any other material. When a spider builds its web, it doesn't just spin the silk and leave it as it is. The spider actually makes adjustments to the silk by changing how tight or loose it is, and how different threads are connected. This way, it creates a web that can vibrate or make different kinds of sounds. The spider is like a musician tuning their guitar. This feather-legged lace weaver is called the garden center spider because it mostly enjoys humid greenhouse conditions, and it has a really cool way of catching insects. Instead of spinning sticky webs like other spiders, it uses electricity. It produces incredibly thin silk, almost at the nanoscale. And on its hind legs, this spider has special hairs that act like tiny combs. As the silk emerges from its body, the spider uses these hairs to comb and manipulate the silk. And here's where the magic happens. This process generates an electric charge. The threads of the silk are now crackling with electricity, so they come together to form little poofs that resemble fluffy balls of wool. These electrically charged poofs are a great way to trap innocent insects wandering around. When unsuspecting prey comes into contact with them, the electric charge causes the threads to cling to their bodies, making it almost impossible to get away. Female Darwin's bark spiders make gigantic webs that can stretch over rivers and lakes, which means they can reach over 80 feet across. It turns out such enormous webs are just a part of their genius plan to catch their prey. A super strong web that goes across the water like a bridge can capture large insects that gracefully fly above the water's surface, like dragonflies, and it's an impressive project that takes days to construct. These special lines go across the river and anchor the web firmly to each bank. There's no easy way out of this.
Oh no.
Stop shouting.
Huh? You can speak? No! No, no, no!
Don't even try to escape. Wow. Okay, I got it. Jeez. No need to swing your fists here. These savages can't even eat in peace.
You're sitting at a coffee shop on Mars, keeping your head down, trying not to draw any attention to yourself. It's crowded, and many people are singing, dancing, and talking loudly about life on Mars. Your drink arrives, and you sip on it. So far, no one recognizes you. You're wearing a cloak with a large hoodie to cover your face and disguise yourself from everyone. Someone accidentally bumps into you and sees your face. The music stops, and now everyone is staring at you. You have nowhere to hide or run. You ignore the leering eyes and keep sipping on your beverage. An old bearded man sits in front of you, amazed to be in your presence.
So, it's true. No one believed you'd make it,
he says. You don't reply and continue with your drink. Everyone else gathers around you. Another man speaks.
Well, are you not going to tell us how you escaped from the clutches of the space kraken?
Everyone gasps in shock. No one has ever made it to tell the tale of the kraken, except you. Your plan was to find your messenger to take you to a spaceship far away from this planet. But it's too late, now that everyone knows you're here. And the messenger fled, knowing all the attention was on you. You lay back your hoodie and explain what happened. 2 days ago. You're in your full gear, ready to make the voyage into deep space. You have a solo ship that's designed to maneuver through all the obstacles in space. You prepare the rest of the gear and fuel up. Everyone is watching you, knowing that you might not make it back. But the Kraken has been floating in space for too long, disrupting shipping containers bringing in goods. A small ship like yours can sneak past its acute sense of smell and vision. But larger ships will get destroyed. You made it your mission to find this Kraken and study it. If you learn its ways and patterns, you can figure out how to get rid of it. Everyone says their goodbyes, and you lift off. You know that it'll be a very long way to get there, possibly 3 days in the emptiness of space. You saw some quick footage of it, but no one knows exactly where it sleeps, or if it even does sleep. You put on some tunes and set your ship for cruise control. You make some notes and set the camera to document yourself while you prepare everything you need. You also have some cameras outside recording everything that moves, even thermal sensors to catch living creatures floating in space. After a few hours, you exit the safe quarters of Mars and enter into the hostile territory. There is no place to hide or anyone to help you. A few little ships like yours pass by now and then. They watch you going further to the Kraken. You notice many floating signs powered by machines warning you about the Kraken. The cameras start recording, and you begin your video journal, which is transmitting to your network at home. So far, nothing. It's quiet and dark. Hours pass, and you're just floating in the middle of nowhere. You almost feel like you want to turn around, but then you pick up something in the sensors. You see a large, live object nearby. You turn off the lights and slow down your ship. You resume recording and start talking to yourself, explaining everything. The object is getting closer and closer. You move aside to avoid it and latch on to a floating rock, but you still don't see anything. Out of nowhere, you see some glowing jellyfish-like creatures flowing together in a cluster. On your thermal sensors, they appear to be large objects, but in fact, they are just little creatures. According to your studies, these creatures are some of the main foods for the Kraken, so they're probably running away from it. After a few minutes, the creatures float away, and you launch yourself out and turn the lights back on. A few more hours pass, and you still see no Kraken. Suddenly, a whoosh shakes your ship, and you're thrown slightly off course. You notice that a large object has spiked your thermal sensors and left. You keep going and check the playback settings to see if your cameras manage to catch something. You try to look carefully, but it seems like a gust of wind blew past you, which is weird because there is no wind in space. You check the thermal sensors and notice that a large object shaped like the Kraken has zipped past you. It's still around, and it has probably caught your scent. Your system's got some DNA particles and are studying them. After a while, they show that the Kraken's skin can change colors according to its surrounding. Its skin is thick and made up of some cosmic fluorescent material that is new to any creature you've ever come across. The system continues studying it. After a while, the kraken goes off your radar and disappears. You circle back, trying to find it. People back on Mars can see the data and already have information about its size and skin quality. They even see some footage you've managed to catch. As you continue driving towards it, you open your floodlights, trying to see anything. Your cameras are still rolling. Suddenly, the kraken changes skin color and appears right in front of you. Its large tentacles flash around, whipping nearby space debris. Its large eye that's as big as a bus looks right at you. It opens its mouth, and you see layers of sharp teeth circling like a grinder. It has a large beak that can break your ship easily. It starts flashing its colors rapidly as a way to warn you. It shoots out some liquid to move in a no-gravity space environment. It's moving towards you until it launches itself. Your ship has an auto force field for protection, but it can't sustain the powerful bite of the kraken. After only a few seconds, the shield breaks and your ship spirals down to another planet. You crash-landed in a swampy land. Your ship has survived, but it can't take off. The analysis of the kraken is ready. It shows that it doesn't need oxygen to breathe, and its DNA is evolving. Now that it got a bite of your force field, it can adapt itself to create a bioforce field of a similar nature. But you crashed on a planet that is foreign to you. You put on your safety suit and observe the environment. The atmosphere is filled with nitrogen and sulfur. You get out and walk around. It has similar gravity to that of Earth. As you venture through the swamp, you start seeing little skin particles similar to those your ship has caught. The liquid below you is some foreign substance that seems to be deteriorating your suit, so you opt to hover. The trees are strange and seem to be living off the atmosphere, but there is no sign of life anywhere. Suddenly, you see a huge crater that leads to the center of the planet. You enter it and see some ships similar to yours. It seems that the kraken knocked them off course, and they all crash-landed on this planet. Many of them seem to be intact, while others are completely obliterated. Your sensors pick up another reading. It senses another creature dwelling in the center. You try to get closer. You're doing your best to be as gentle as possible, but you feel the ground shaking below you. You duck down and try to avoid the rocks falling overhead. A large tentacle pops out of nowhere, and then another and another. It swings itself out and crawls in the open. According to your system's studies, this kraken is 10 times larger and even looks different. It doesn't spot you, but it can sense that you're around. It starts thrashing the planet, trying to find you. It knocks your ship. You try to find a way to start it, but it's missing a piece. You find another abandoned ship and take out the part that you need and put it on your ship. Your suit has an auto repair function that allows you to fix your ship without the tools. After a few minutes, it's ready for takeoff. You power up your ship, even though it's damaged, and lift off. You manage to sneak past the kraken. Everyone at the coffee shop is silent. Many don't believe your stories. They had stopped receiving live transmissions before you were knocked off by the space kraken. Out of nowhere, an alarm rings and warns that the kraken has arrived. Everyone rushes off in a panic. You hear a voice in your head. It's a bunch of gibberish, but you start getting visions of the kraken talking to you. It knows you're here, and it's coming for you.
So, the Terra planet's location seems to be at these coordinates. Okay, let's go to outer space to see the situation. Is it me, or is something moving? Oh no, there's too many piranhas! Oh my, there's too many of them. Oh no, 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 no! Leave me alone! Wait, no! I have to get back to the ship! We need to find shelter, now! Just a little bit more. Huh. Now we need to push off in the direction of the ship. It seems they don't see me. Come on, come on! Come on, almost! Oh no, this is the end. No, go away! Huh? So you guys aren't as bad as people say?
Traveling at about 17,000 miles per hour, 250 miles above the Earth, astronauts watch 16 sunrises and sunsets every day while floating around in a box with a handful of people they depend on for survival. Whether humans should set off to other worlds beyond Earth or not, one of the most compelling drawbacks is this: our bodies don't like it. Few people know this better than the NASA astronaut who spent nearly a year on the International Space Station from 2015 to 2016, Scott Kelly. Like other astronauts, Mr. Kelly served as a test subject in the study of space travel's effects on the human body. Unlike other astronauts, Mr. Kelly has an identical twin, Mark, who is an astronaut himself. This gave researchers an uncommon opportunity to monitor the two brothers as they lived in two very different environments, one on Earth and the other 250 miles above it. When the astronaut went into space and his slightly older twin brother Mark stayed on Earth, the age gap between them increased thanks to his time in orbit. And it's all down to Einstein's theory of relativity. What it suggests is that time moves more slowly for objects in motion than it does for a stationary observer. It also moves more slowly the closer you are to a gravitational mass like Earth. In other words, we're not all experiencing time at the same rate. The faster you move and accelerate, the more time slows down. And because Mr. Kelly has been zooming up to and down from space and orbiting the planet at around 17,500 miles per hour, his brother Mark has lived through 0.005 extra seconds. The brothers were born 6 seconds apart back in 1964, and now that gap is 6.005 seconds. This warping of time is known as time dilation, and the Kelly brothers qualify for both aspects of it: how fast they've been moving in relation to one another and how close they are to a big object, which is Earth. So, depending on our position and speed, time can appear to move faster or slower to us relative to others in a different part of space-time. And for astronauts on the International Space Station, that means they get to age just a tiny bit slower than people on Earth. That doesn't mean you could spend your life in a basement just to outlive the rest of us here on the surface. The effect isn't noticeable on such a small scale. If you became a basement hermit, then across your entire lifetime, you'd only age a fraction of a second slower than everyone else above ground. But your brain might freeze when you think about this. A watch strapped to your ankle will eventually fall behind one strapped to your wrist. Your head technically ages more quickly than your feet. Time passes faster for people living on a mountain than those living at sea level. The classic example for this is the twin scenario. One twin blasts off in a spaceship, traveling close to the speed of light, and the other stays behind on Earth. When the space-traveling twin returns to Earth, she's only aged a couple of years. But she's shocked to find that her Earthbound sister has aged over a decade. Of course, no one has performed that experiment in real life, but there's evidence that it's real. When scientists launched an atomic clock into orbit and back, while keeping an identical clock here on Earth, it returned running ever so slightly behind the Earthbound clock. Then time gets even more complicated, because time dilation can happen anytime. A good way to think about it is to consider the astronauts living on the International Space Station. They're floating about 260 miles above where Earth's gravitational pull is weaker than it is at the surface. That means time should speed up for them relative to the people on the ground. but the space station is also whizzing around Earth at about nearly 5 miles per second. That means time should also slow down for the astronauts relative to people on the surface. But the reality is that Mark, the brother who's aged a few milliseconds longer, could end up better off in the long run if Mr. Kelly's extended time in space causes his body to deteriorate faster. 10 science teams in NASA's twin study examined the brothers' astronauts before, during, and after the astronauts' 340 days in space. The teams studied each twin's bodily functions, they ran memory tests, and they examined the men's genes, looking what differences might be due to space travel. They confirmed that lengthy space travel stresses the human body in many ways. Space living can change genes and send the immune system into overdrive. It can dull mind and memory. Most changes that the astronaut experienced in space reversed once he returned to Earth, but not everything. The researchers tested him again after 6 months back on land. Roughly 91% of the genes that had changed activity in space were now back to normal. The rest stayed in space mode. His immune system, for instance, remained on high alert. DNA repair genes were still overly active, and some of his chromosomes were still topsy-turvy. What's more, the astronaut's mental abilities had declined from pre-flight levels. He was slower and less accurate on short-term memory and logic tests. It's unclear whether these results are definitely from spaceflight. That's partly because the observations are from only one person. But one thing is sure, time is relative. Think of it this way. If a clock is stationary and you are traveling at a very high speed, you happen to pass by this clock and have a glimpse at it, you'll see that it's running slowly, or maybe it's completely static. This is because the speed at which the mechanical functions of the clock are working slower than you. What you see is the time in the past, while you have already skipped that second and are in the future. During this experiment of high-speed traveling, you haven't aged at all, because all the processes in your body are working at the same speed as you. After a certain age, your body starts to deteriorate, which eventually leads to a state when it stops functioning. This aging phenomenon, especially in humans, is caused by a protein structure in the cells called telomeres. These structures protect our cells from deteriorating, but with each cell replication, these telomeres start to lose strength, which is called telomere length. If the telomere length shortens to a certain extent, the cell becomes vulnerable to diseases. We can say that telomeres are the natural countdown timers in our bodies, which determine when we will expire. The telomere length can be affected by external factors like stress, which accelerates our timer. The twin study experiment by NASA included documenting the changes in telomere length of both brothers. The telomere length of the space brother increased while he was aboard the International Space Station. Before the mission, both brothers had nearly the same telomere lengths, meaning if we ignore issues like mental stress, both brothers should live roughly an equal age. But while the space brother was orbiting the Earth, he had almost 14.5% longer telomere length. The space brother was a few years younger than his ground brother biologically. Because the telomere length of the space brother resumed to normal when he came back to Earth, it took almost 190 days after return for the telomere length to restore to expected. The blood samples from the International Space Station were sent back to Earth for processing. This means the blood wasn't traveling at the speed of the ISS anymore. Also, the space-time paradox states that the space brother should be younger upon return. But the telomere length restored to its original state before the mission. The space brother was again the same age as his ground brother. A lack of gravity is the main cause for these intense changes in aging. Gravity plays an immense role in the majority of our bodily systems. Take the muscles, for example. Older people's muscles tend to shrink and decline as they age and become less mobile. Astronauts' muscles react in a similar way because they are barely used. That's why astronauts staying in space for extended periods of time use special exercise machines to help reduce this effect. A similar process takes place in the bones. After a certain age, people on Earth start to lose mass in their bones, typically at a rate of about 1 to 2% a year. But in space, those people lose bone mass at a greatly accelerated rate, as much as 1 to 2% a month. Because the astronauts' bodies don't need to support their weight, the bones begin to decrease production of new bone material and increase the amount of old bone absorption. Luckily, their skeletal systems usually return to normal once they've spent some time back on our blue planet. If the space brother was shielded from all harms of space, like radiations, while orbiting the ISS, then he would have lived longer than his ground brother. Even though they're saving 0.005 seconds, astronauts still experience some of the symptoms of a drawn-out aging process. So the next time you find yourself wishing the weekend would last longer, stay low to the ground and move really fast. It won't feel like your weekend got any longer, but technically, you may gain a teeny tiny fraction of a second. You won't need to go to space for this little experiment.
It's probably one of the worst nightmares for an astronaut, to float away to outer space without any hope to return. Just imagine slowly moving away from the International Space Station into an endless black void because of some accident, somewhere where there's absolutely nothing but a cold vacuum. Fortunately, you still have an opportunity to survive. Let's have a detailed look at the moment when this can happen. So, you're on the International Space Station. It's now at an altitude of about 250 miles in the upper layers of the atmosphere. It's important to mention that it's not just hanging out there in space. Earth's gravity is constantly pulling on the station. Not to fall, the station needs to fly around our planet at a speed of about 17,000 miles per hour. That speed is fast enough to help the station fight the planet's pull. But on the ISS, when you go into outer space, you don't feel this speed. It seems to you that you're floating in one place, watching Earth spin. But there's still a lot of space debris that moves in the opposite direction. From the point of view of a person on the ISS, the speed of these objects is incredibly fast. You put on a spacesuit. It has oxygen supplies and is equipped with a water compartment so you can drink during the mission. So, you're about to walk into space. First, you need to go through a special door called an airlock. Once you're inside, you see that there are two doors here. You enter and close the first door to block access to the space station's oxygen. Then you open the door leading to space. What you're about to do is called a spacewalk. There are several reasons why you might be in outer space right now. You may be conducting scientific experiments to find out how different things behave in space. Also, you can be testing new equipment, sensors, and other high-tech gizmos. Another reason might be the repair of failed parts or routine maintenance of the International Space Station. Before taking a step into the void, you attach your spacesuit to a rope connected to the body of the ship. You can also fasten small cables to your tools, such as a screwdriver or a wrench, so that you don't lose them. You push off the ship and experience a feeling similar to swimming underwater. By the way, before going out into a zero-gravity area, astronauts train inside a huge swimming pool. You hold on to the parts of the ship and head to the place that needs to be repaired. Let's say you need to tighten a small screw. One astronaut once said that any work in outer space is difficult. You're wearing a huge suit that slows down your movements and makes you clumsy. It also makes your skin itchy. The work can last up to several hours. During this time, you sweat a lot. One of the spacesuit filters may be broken. In this case, all the fluid released by your body can spread all over the suit and reach your face. Your eyes may start watering. Tears will make your vision blurry. As you see, dozens of dangers are lurking out there in open space, and there are no clear instructions on how to deal with most of them. Anyway, you're tightening the screw, but something goes wrong. The wrench jumps out of your hand, and the screw flies out of the hull of the ship. You try to catch it and accidentally push off the station. You manage to grab the screw, but your body is already flying away. You have nothing to hold on to, but you have the rope. And oh no, it's not tied to your spacesuit anymore. You've attached it incorrectly. Now you're not just flying away from the station. Your body is also spinning. The views of blue Earth and black space switch in front of your eyes. You can't stop. Fortunately, the cable is not the only safety measure. Your spacesuit is equipped with a SAFER, Simplified Aid for EVA Rescue. This is a backpack with fuel that works like a jetpack. You activate the backpack, and it levels your flight. You stop spinning and calm down a bit. Now, you know exactly where the ISS is located. Next, you have to choose the direction manually and fly up to the station very carefully. The SAFER releases gas from small tubes, and this makes you fly forward. Using the SAFER control panel that looks similar to a joystick, you can change the direction in which the gas is released. This way, you'll steer your spacesuit. Make sure the station is in your line of sight. Press the joystick to activate the tubes, but take your time. You have to stabilize your forward movement. Pressing the wrong button can cause you to spin again, and this will reduce your chances of returning. Each astronaut spends many hours in a virtual reality simulator that makes them feel like being in outer space. So know how to control the safer. You're approaching the station at a slow pace. Don't let the backpack speed you up. If you start to accelerate, you need to point the tubes in the opposite direction to slow yourself down. If you fly too fast, you can crash into the station and damage the spacesuit. You've finally arrived at the ISS. You need to cling to something and move toward the airlock. You feel as if you're climbing a mountain underwater. You get to the airlock. Phew! Well, let's go back in time to the moment when you were flying away from the ISS. So, you tried to use the backpack to level your movement. You're nervous and can't calm down. You randomly press the joystick and chaotically direct the tubes in different directions. A few minutes pass. You haven't come closer to the station, and the fuel in the safer has run out. Now, you're even more nervous. Let's go back in time again. You float away from the ISS. Then use the safer and slow down the rotation speed of your body. Now you're facing the ISS. You approach the station with slow but steady thrusts. Everything is going well, but at one moment, you notice some movement. This is a small piece of metal from an old satellite. It crashes into the safer and slices through the backpack. Fuel starts leaking out into space. You start spinning again because of the impact. You don't understand which way you are moving. All you need now is to take a deep breath and use the remaining fuel to stop. Done. You're floating without rotating. There are no instructions and protocols that will help you get out of this situation. You're moving in outer space and can control this process. To return to the ISS, you need to push off something. Fortunately, you have time to think about what to do next. Your spacesuit has oxygen reserves that are enough for several hours. Also, you have water. You can drink it through a small rubber straw attached to the inside of your helmet neck ring. You're the first human in history who got into such a situation. But this doesn't mean there's no chance of survival. If you could throw something to the side, it'd set you in motion. For example, if you had a heavy wrench, you could throw it in the opposite direction from the ISS. This way, you'd launch yourself toward the station. But unfortunately, you have nothing to throw. You have your broken safer, but you can't remove it without another person's assistance. You enjoy the beautiful view of Earth and try to breathe as slowly as possible to save oxygen. It seems there's no chance left for you. But at this moment, other astronauts call you using the radio. They see your location and are going to save you. Your colleague is heading in your direction. She's attached securely to 2 long cables. She's going to give you one of them when she reaches you. Using the safer, the astronaut flies in your direction. She's very close. Finally, she slows down and grabs your hand. She unhooks one of the cables from her spacesuit and attaches it to yours. Using the cable, you approach the station. At this moment, a rusty bolt flies by. The main danger is that space debris can break through your spacesuit and tear the rope. You accelerate and reach the airlock, and then you open the door and dive inside. One of the most dangerous space missions has been completed. Theoretically, there's another way to save you. A spacecraft delivering food and air supplies to the ISS can pick you up and bring you back to the station. But this mission is even more difficult, as it requires a very precise route calculation. If something goes wrong, the spaceship can kick you. In this case, you will fly away at high speed. You can travel for several hours until you run out of oxygen, or a piece of space debris destroys your spacesuit. Fortunately, all astronauts are well-trained and experienced enough to avoid such accidents.
There's a giant ghostly hand that stretches across space. Its eerie fingers are reaching for a glowing red cloud that looks like molten space lava. Although it looks like a scene straight out of a sci-fi movie, it's 100% real. The hand was formed after an enormous star collapsed in a huge supernova explosion. The boom created a new star that is bursting with energy. The energy given off by the star is so big that it caused debris from the explosion to swirl around it. This is what created the supernatural-looking hand. The hand is so big that it stretches a colossal 150 light-years. As for the lava-like structure it's reaching for, that's actually a huge gas cloud. So while it looks spooky, it's completely harmless, and you can go to sleep tonight without worrying about a giant ghostly space hand scooping you out of bed. There's a bizarre star hidden in the depths of space that seems to randomly flash on and off. It's known as Tabby's star, and its light dims at super irregular intervals for really odd lengths of time. There have been so many theories about what's causing this, from meteor showers to outer space interference. The comet shower idea was quickly debunked. Dust from comets, which would block the light, goes away after a couple of months. Tabby's star fades slowly over decades, so the timing just doesn't add up. It can't be down to planets either, as no planet is big enough to block that much light from a star. After years of speculation, scientists have finally found an explanation for the strange phenomenon. The dimming and brightening are actually a result of space dust. A ring of dust surrounds the star, which often temporarily blocks its light. On day 8 of its mission in 2019, China's lunar rover discovered something really strange on the far side of our moon that caught the attention of the entire world. While navigating a path around a bunch of lunar craters, it spotted something really weird lurking inside one of the moon's holes. It was a colored substance, just like gel, that we'd never encountered before. The curious material was a rich dark green color and glistened like diamonds. After a year of analyzing the foreign substance that measured 20 inches by 6 inches, the scientists finally came to a conclusion. The glistening effect seems to come from glass. In space, it usually appears as a result of lunar impact melts. This means that it's most likely from a comet or rock that has hit the moon and melted upon impact. But while it's likely that the strange substance is just melted rock, scientists aren't 100% sure. This is because the pictures were captured under bad lighting conditions, and there were a bunch of other factors that badly impacted the quality of the images. So, the jury is still out on this one. There's a huge space cucumber floating through the galaxy, and no one really knows where it came from or why it's there. Okay, it's not exactly a cucumber, or a pickle. It's more likely a super elongated rock. Scientists think it may be longer than half a mile, but only 540 feet wide. It's traveling so quickly that there's no way it's bound by our sun's gravity, meaning that the strange object was formed somewhere outside of our solar system. We don't even know how long it's been wandering through space. It's estimated that it entered our solar system during the Victorian era, but who knows where it had traveled before then. For years, we've been told there are 8 planets in our solar system. 9 if you count Pluto, which got kicked out of the club some years ago. But that might all be about to change. There may be an enormous secret world lurking in the midst of our system, which scientists are calling Planet 9. This undiscovered planet could be way out past Neptune. There are seemingly unexplained clusters of orbits there, and this hidden 9th planet would explain this. The planet, if it exists, would be 10 times the size of Earth, take at least 10,000 years to orbit the Sun, and would sit over 200 times further out than our home planet. This is why it's been so tricky to identify, as it's almost impossible to take a picture of. In 2019, 30% of the area that the planet is likely to be in had been searched. It will take at least another 2 years to cover the remaining area. In the meantime, we'll be waiting on the edge of our seats. No. Strange radio waves are beaming down on Earth, and scientists are baffled. These fast radio bursts are sudden, unexplained, and last just milliseconds. We first picked up the weird signals in 2007, and scientists have been scratching their heads ever since. They appear to be coming from outside the Milky Way, millions of light years away. For us to pick them up from that far away, they must be emitting more energy in a fraction of a second than the Sun does in 80 years. Most of these signals only came once, which would have made identifying them much easier, until this all changed in 2017. In August, a signal was picked up that repeated 93 times, ruling out speculation that the signals were being caused by random one-off events. To this day, we still don't know what's causing the signals. Back in 2014, NASA captured a surprising picture of the Sun that showed that it might like to play dress-up. A brilliant storm of magnetic fields caused the Sun to look like a flaming jack-o'-lantern. Even weirder is that the image was captured on October 8th. It was possible because of something called active regions. These are basically areas of the sun that have greater levels of light and energy. This is what gives the flaming look in the images. The light forms two eyes, a nose, and a wide, jagged, smiling mouth. Fortunately, this look was just a coincidence, and there isn't a giant pumpkin carving enthusiast lurking in the depths of space. Hey, I want to know, is this a trick or treat? Space fans spotted what appeared to look like a spoon on the surface of Mars. It was half covered in dust. They noticed it after images from a Mars rover had been released. As spooky as the suspicious silverware may sound, it was just a trick of the light. The spoon is just a regular old rock, albeit in a slightly odd shape. The play of shadows in the photo made the object look even more spoon-like. Maybe there's a dish nearby that the spoon ran away with. A cosmic eyeball floating somewhere among the stars is no regular-sized eye. It measures an incredible 660 miles across. One of Saturn's moons, Tethys, has become a bit of a celeb to space fans. The spherical moon sports a large crater that makes it look exactly like a giant interplanetary eyeball. There's even a set of peaks inside the crater that look like an iris. Saturn has a gang of 60 moons in total, and Tethys isn't the only one that looks like a random Earth object. Prometheus looks like a potato, Atlas resembles a pita bread freshly served from a Greek restaurant, and Mimas even looks like some villain's spacecraft. And then there's this. There's a giant cat's eye right in the middle of space. Its official name is NGC 6543, but that's kind of long and boring, so most people call it the Cat's Eye Nebula. And it's actually one of the first nebulas to have ever been discovered. Like other nebulas, it was formed by a star that shed its outer layer of gas. The gas floated off and produced this amazing and intriguing structure. The star fires off this layer of gas every 1,500 years. Each time it does this, it creates a spectacular new dust shell. Hey, don't get me started on gas. Hey, we landed on the moon. We sailed around the world. Romeo met Juliet. Hey, it's hard to imagine that there are creatures out there who saw it all happen. Immortal animals. Well, almost. Glass sponges are weird little creatures that sit in one place for thousands of years. From their favorite spot under the sea, they witnessed the first Europeans crossing over to the Americas. They can live up to 15,000 years. And what's even cooler is that they can control their aging process, speed it up or slow it down. They have a glass-like exoskeleton for protection. Lobsters can grow back a limb if they lose it, and they're basically immortal. They produce an unlimited number of enzymes that keeps their DNA young forever, and they just keep on growing. That means they outgrow their own shells. They have to shed their exoskeleton every now and then and upgrade to a bigger one. The largest lobster ever caught was 44 pounds off the coast of Nova Scotia. Scientists think this large lobster was around 100 years old. It was around when Edison invented the phonograph. This next creature is a mix between a jellyfish and a tree branch. Each end of the hydra has a ringed foot, and it spends its days chilling by lakes and rivers. Its tentacles grab onto tasty snacks that swim past it. So, what's the secret to its immortality? That's something everyone wants to know. The hydra has the ability to renew its stem cells. Scientists have been trying to do that for years. They can actually slow down their aging process. Now, these little sea creatures are Red Sea urchins. They sit on seaweed in shallow waters and are immortal. Well, we haven't been studying them long enough to know for sure. But scientists say they only grow in size, not in age. What? Well, they sort of stay like little baby urchins, but grow in size. Adult, baby urchin, okay. These little babies can reach around 100 years old, even 200. The slowest on the list? The giant tortoise. It can reach 200 years old. And one of the oldest is Jonathan. He's technically the oldest crawling land animal. He was born in 1832 and lives it up on a remote island called St. Helena. Jonathan's been through a lot. He's seen the very first American skyscraper, the Eiffel Tower. Oh yeah, He's also lived through every single World Series, starting when he was 71 years old. Now, he can't see too well and he's lost his sense of smell, but he's still going strong. Back to the oceans and the Greenland shark. It's been known to be the longest living vertebrate and can live more than 400 years. Swimming around for that long in the deep, dark, cold ocean means these sharks are tough. They're able to withstand insane water pressure. Sharks are one of the only creatures today that haven't been affected too much by evolution. Many sharks have been around since the dinosaurs and haven't changed much. Scientists found out that they grow around ½ an inch per year. So, with a little bit of quick math, they can easily find out the age of these tough sharks. Imagine seeing a shark that's older than the USA. This next creature is probably the most durable, indestructible, and cutest on the list. It's called a tardigrade, but scientists nickname it water bear because I guess it looks like one. But it's not exactly bear size. It has 8 legs and hands with a strange little nose, and these bizarre microscopic creatures are indestructible. They're known to live in the most extreme places on the planet. They're fine with temperatures as high as 300 and as low as minus 330. Volcanoes, frozen desert nights, they can even handle radiation and massive amounts of pressure in the deepest parts of the ocean. They can even survive the vacuum in space. No tiny little spacesuit or anything. Yeah, that would be cute enough. So far, they've survived 10 days on the outside of a spaceship, but they could probably do longer. Tardigrades might be able to outlive humans if there's some sort of worldwide catastrophe. Microscopic organisms in charge of the planet. Wonder what that would look like. Whether it's all the volcanoes erupting at once, or another ice age, or even another pesky asteroid. Tardigrades probably wouldn't even notice. Scientists are studying them to see if they can help us with some next-level biotech. Now, just for fun, here's the mayfly. This poor little insect doesn't even make it past 24 hours on average. Females and males can make it to a whopping 2 days old. Talk about living in the moment. These little flies grow in swarms and are known to have one of the shortest lifespans of any creature. But as a species, well, they've been around for hundreds of millions of years. Jellyfish have discovered the fountain of youth, and surprise, surprise, it's been inside them all along. Not inspirational poster style, but literally, it's always been inside them. Jellyfish are able to reverse their aging process whenever they want. Imagine you're swimming along and then you think to yourself, gee, I kind of want to be 8 again. And poof, there you are. Who wouldn't want to go back to being 8? That's how jellyfish stay young and live stress-free. These brainless and boneless creatures can turn the clock back anytime they want, as long as no one bothers them. They're super chill, just floating in whatever direction the current takes them. Like, go with the flow? This creature looks like something right out of a sci-fi movie, and you could say it has sort of alien features. The giant weta outweighs a mouse and is considered one of the biggest insects out there. You find these big bugs in New Zealand. While jellyfish can reverse their aging process, some members of the weta family can come back to life. Talk about superpowers. If they get completely frozen, they start to make special proteins that stop their organs from getting ruined. After whatever amount of time they're frozen, they can be thawed out and brought back to life, like nothing ever happened. In fact, the giant weta has ears on its knees in its front legs. And because it can resurrect, it's also called the zombie bug. Planaria are flatworms that are unique. Apart from being practically immortal, they're the ultimate regeneration machines for lost body parts. If you take one of them and divide its body into 10 parts, you'll end up with 10 new planaria. You keep dividing them up, they'll keep multiplying, even though they're usually less than an inch long. Imagine if we could figure out how to do that. Would that be a way for us to live forever? Or would we end up with a totally crazy world with copies of everyone walking around? How about the world's fastest relay team, 4 identical Usain Bolts? Now, clams have been around for a really long time. Scientists have discovered that they can live up to 400 years old. These little shelled creatures are the ones that create those shiny little pearls everyone loves. A clam will go into action mode when a parasite gets inside. The clam tries to cover the parasite with a bunch of special chemicals, the same ones it uses to make the inside of its shell. That's when the magic starts to happen. When these chemicals harden up, they make a shiny, glossy pearl. The more chemicals, the bigger the pearl. Now this long, slippery-looking creature lives deep in the caves of Europe. The olm can live up to be 100 years old. It spends its days hunting for little insects, snails, and crabs with its tiny front arms and wriggling snake-like body. Its skin is so pale that some locals even call it the human fish. Hey, wait a minute. The olm is almost blind, but it can still detect light. It just mostly does it through its skin. Like other blind animals, it has a supercharged sense of hearing and smell. It gets its distinct look from those little red gills around its neck. You wake up and can't recognize your room. That's definitely it, but your desk is on the wall, and the dresser is on the ceiling. It's closed, but you can somehow see every folded t-shirt in it. You wipe your eyes. Nothing changes. This isn't a dream. Welcome to the fourth-dimensional world. Wait, rewind. To understand the fourth-dimensional world, we need to look at the others. So, a zero-dimension world is just a point. Now, if you expand it, you get a one-dimensional world that's a simple line. It only has one measure, and that's length. The creatures living in this world can only move in one direction, either left or right. In general, a dimension is a direction in which an object can move. So now we'll add another line perpendicular to the one we have. We get a flat surface with a length and width, like a piece of paper. The flat creatures that live in a 2D world can move left and right, and now forward and backward. To turn this flat paper world into one we're more familiar with, we draw parallel lines from each corner of the square. Now we get height, the third dimension. The objects of this world have three measures: length, width, and height. They can move in three dimensions: left and right, back and forth, up and down. That's the world we live in. But now we need to figure out where to put the next perpendicular line to get a fourth dimension. It's no easy task, because this fourth dimension, as well as the fifth and 12th ones scientific theories say could exist, are hidden from us because of the limitations of our perception. While we were going through the first three dimensions, we could see that with every next dimension, we expand the possibilities. The objects become more complicated. As inhabitants of a 3D space, we can easily imagine what 1D and 2D worlds are like because they're part of our own. But for residents of those worlds, it's not that easy to understand ours because they're just not able to perceive it. Why? Imagine you're one of these 2D flatlanders and you're living your simple flat life. If a sphere, a 3D object, somehow appears in your world, the only thing you'll be able to see is a dot that appears out of nowhere, and then grows into a longer and longer line, and then shrinks back down into a dot before disappearing. A flatlander could combine all these lines to get a circle. Or, if he could look at it from above, he can't, that would involve height, it would just be a dot growing into a larger and larger circle and then getting smaller. Either way, our flatlander ends up looking at a flat circle, not a sphere. That's exactly what will happen to us if we try to understand a 4D object. We'll see it like a 3D object, appearing, somehow changing, and then disappearing. We wouldn't be able to make sense out of it. For example, let's take a 4D hypersphere and put it in our world. Here's what you'll see. Looks like a regular old sphere appearing, growing, shrinking, and disappearing. Good luck trying to combine the spheres all together to make sense out of its 4D shape. Okay, let's try it with something a little easier. Remember, 1D is a line, 2D is then a square, and 3D adds more perpendicular lines to get a cube. To get a 4D cube, called a tesseract, we connect two cubes. We know that every side of a 3D cube is a square. In a tesseract, every side of it is a cube. This shape looks really confusing, especially if we realize that it's a 3D projection of a 4D object on your 2D screen. Just like the Flatlanders, we're unable to fully understand what a higher dimensional world is like. Even scientists have a vague and limited perception about it. They mostly describe it in complex mathematical equations, not physical objects. But think about it this way. Technically, every single day, 4D or even 10D beings could enter our world, and we wouldn't even know it. Now, if the first, second, and third dimensions are length, left and right, breadth, back and forth, and height, up and down, what does that make the fourth dimension? How about a real-world example? There are 2D ultrasounds that show a flat black and white image, mostly made up of outlines. Then there's 3D. It's basically like a normal photograph you'd see in an album. Things have a form, depth, shadows. Then there's 4D ultrasound. This is an image that's constantly being updated with time. The fourth dimension. Some call it strength, but it's basically space-time, in and out and always. So you wake up in your room in a 4D world. The planet is a hypersphere. Everything around you is as if you lived in a sphere. Your wardrobe is still up on the ceiling, and you need to get dressed. Wait, where are you going? Stay right there. I know you still think the shortest way from A to B is a straight line, but you're in a 4D world now. The shortest way here is through. So just look through your wardrobe, find your favorite t-shirt and jeans, and grab them. That's better. Hey, your roommate is making coffee. Let's grab something to eat too. You could just teleport there, but let's take the long way. No, not the stairs, through the walls and floor. Doors and stairs will probably be non-existent in a 4D world. There's your roommate. Don't be confused, he's okay. Albert Einstein called the 4D universe a space-time world. Here, the past, present, and future all come together. So, like every other object, your friend exists in every moment of his entire life. I know what you're wondering. If you can move through walls, can you move through people too? Yeah, but please don't reach into his head and tickle his brain. That's taboo in this world. Even if it can be done, it shouldn't. Here's another cool thing. You can see people's emotions. See the yellowish shadow around him? It means he isn't in a very good mood. But wait, mentally, you don't need words here. They're too slow. You can reach any person mentally within a moment, even if they're on the other side of the planet. Now, let's grab your sandwich, laptop, some work papers. Oh no, you don't need this bag, forget it. You have pockets, right? Put it all there. You'll see it fits perfectly. There's endless space. Well, and no reason to take things with you when you can instantly teleport. Forgot your wallet? 1 second. Now you have it. Okay, you're a little late already. Work starts at 9 and your boss is going to be seething. But don't worry. Remember, you exist in any time, present, past, and future. Even though it's 9:12 already, just get there by 9. In fact, let's take a vacation day. Teleport to Rome. See all the sights as they were through all of time and history. Master the Italian language. Where to next? When to next? The choice is yours. You can always travel back and get to your job like a punctual hard worker. And still, life in a 4D world would probably be something entirely different than even my wild imagination can come up with. So, I'll let you finish this story down below.